What's more likely? Aaron Rodgers plays 8 games or he plays 18? The fact that their entire season rests on the shoulders and Achilles of a 40-year-old conspiracy theorist. Welcome back, everybody, to another beautiful episode of the Kev BK Beloved podcast. I'm your host, Kev BK Beloved, and today I got a guest joining me. Very rare occasion I do this. I got my man, 1/3 of the Opening Kickoff podcast, dear friend of mine, my brother Brandon Stevens is on here with me. Brandon, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? I'm doing good, bro. Doing good. Just, I'm still living off the high of the Celtics championship, as you can tell by my nice background imagery.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Brandon is also a fellow Celtics fan, and which is why he's the first guest for the things. It makes up for the fact that he's a Bills fan, so he has a little bit of joy in his life.
It does. It does.
So we're here keeping it going. We're going to talk about you going to the parade without me later, but for right now, we're going to preview every single team for the AFC East. We're going to start with your team, the Buffalo Bills, because I am a courteous host, and we're going to do it like this. What's more likely for the Buffalo Bills? Is it more likely that they win the Super Bowl or they miss the playoffs?
I think it's more likely that we win the Super Bowl than it is for us to miss the playoffs. I feel like even though the AFC is super competitive, like really, really competitive, I believe too much in my quarterback. He's shown me that he can get us, to that point. We haven't played in a Super Bowl, but I think, we've gotten close, even with the rosters that we've had. They've been good, but I don't think have been necessarily amazing. It's so funny because it kind of reminds me a lot of the Celtics in a way when I look at this team. Like it's so good and we've been so close and we hadn't been able to get over that hump. And, obviously, Celtics brought in some people, got over that hump. So I'm hoping that we can do the same. If not, it's not going to happen this year, obviously, but next year is supposed to be big for cap room and the draft and all that. So I'm hoping that if it's not this year, at least next year, we can sort of bring those people in and get it done.
So my thing is with the Bills, and I like the Bills-Celtics comparison, there's only one big difference between the two. The Celtics don't have a boogeyman the way the Bills do. There is a very clear boogeyman in the AFC when it comes to the Bills, and his name is Patrick LaVon Mahomes II. and the only, I'm not going to ruin my AFC West preview thing that I'm going to do probably the day before the season opener, is the Chiefs have all of NFL history against them because no one's ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row. So that's the strongest argument against them, and the fact that half their team keeps getting arrested every other day. that also doesn't help.
They're trying to match UGA at this point, man.
You see what I'm saying? So those two things going back and forth is really what makes me like the Bills' chances. I agree with you. I think it's way more likely they win the Super Bowl than miss the playoffs altogether. But this is where I get to my first question with the Bills is, what's going to propel them to the Super Bowl is, can Josh Allen copy what Mahomes did with the Chiefs last year? And by that, I mean, the receivers are not what they were in years past. I had a nice little note here earlier that I was going to read, and I'm going to find it shortly. There we go. 5 different wide receivers for the Buffalo Bills last year had 20 or more targets. 4 of them are no longer on the team. The other one is Chase Shakur.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think Josh Allen is capable of doing with these receivers what Mahomes did with the Chiefs receivers last year?
I'm going to say yes. Because I think that on a skill and a talent level, like between him and Mahomes, the gap is not as big as people think, in my personal opinion, right? Mahomes has the accolades to prove it, but I think when you look at these two guys play, that the difference between the two of them is not like worldly. Right? Like one wins way more, has won 3 Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
He's been the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guy I don't think is that, I don't think Josh is that far behind Mahomes at all.
In terms of physical ability, I'm with you.
Yes. And that's really all I'm saying is what you look at on the field, I don't think it's really that different. I don't think there's a sea between the two of them like a lot of people say it is. I think it's just the Chiefs are, they got a Hall of Fame head coach. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback. They got a Hall of Fame tight end. They might have a Hall of Fame DC, honestly.
Definitely.
Like, he might have to make that case now.
Yeah.
I just think that roster is very well constructed. Obviously, outside of the receivers, it's a very well constructed team. They got a guy in Chris Jones that's just absolutely, wrecking game. Any game he plays in, he's a game wrecker. And those are just some things that I don't think that the Bills necessarily have. So that helps a lot, but I think just with the two of them, I don't think that the difference is really that major. So I think he can definitely replicate what Mahomes did last year for sure.
So the only thing that gives me pause with that is, well, two things. One, the elephant in the room with Josh Allen, and the main difference between him and Patrick Mahomes, obviously, is the turnovers.
Yeah.
He gives the ball away way too much. That's my biggest Josh Allen problem. Like, it's just quarterbacks that don't take care of the ball, not my speed. I grew up watching Tom Brady, and that's the opposite of his way of life. Like, taking care of the football is responsibility 1 through 5 as a quarterback for me. So that's just kind of the thing. And if the game plan has to be, all right, Josh, go be awesome, and you don't know whether he's going to turn the ball over or not on a down-the-down basis, that's where it gets a little dicey. And this is where we can actually get into question number 2, which is where my second concern is. When Joe Brady took over the offense last year, the game plan stopped being Josh Allen be awesome, and it started being a little more balanced, which worked to the benefit because you guys ended up saving your season and making the playoffs that way. But if you look at Josh Allen's numbers, he had a career-high 3.1% interception rate with a career low outside of the year he just barely came in before Dayball wasn't good yet, 5% touchdown rate. His lowest since 2019, 18 rushing touchdowns, 11 of them came under Brady. So there was definitely an emphasis on running the football instead, which also emphasizes y'all lost pretty much every running back on your team not named James Cook. So I'll ask you, I'm going to ask for both coordinators, but I'm going to start first. How different do you think this offense will look with Joe Brady at the helm now?
I think it'll look very different. It's going to look very reminiscent of how it did at the end of the season. There was a lot of talk with, us cutting Diggs out of the offense and, why wasn't he getting the ball as much and yada, yada, yada. And we needed that to win. I don't think that was the case at all. I think everybody was able to see that last season, that we didn't need to force feed him the ball to win games. Spreading the ball around, running the football was huge. I mean, that completely turned our season around. Just James Cook having, that I would say from maybe like week 5, 4 or 5 on, like the guy was he was everything that we needed. So I'm really looking forward to him doing that next year. Doing that again, spreading the ball around Josh. Hopefully he can build that rapport with Kincaid and really sort of get that that tandem going, because I think that'll be very huge for this offense. But I think it's going to look good. It's going to look better than it did at the last half of last year. And I feel like we should be good to go.
My thing with the Diggs thing, though, I'm happy you brought that up. Stephon Diggs had 160 targets last year. That is 6th in the league.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone else on the team is the number 1 receiver on their team with a bullet that is above him in that top 5. So I don't think it was really a targets issue, because how many more targets do you want?
Apparently more. There's been talk, after the departure, even prior to him leaving, that he wanted to be more involved in the offense at that back half of the season. I would be interested. I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would be interested to see what his targets look like before that Eagles game that we had and afterwards.
If we had more time, I'd definitely get that number for you. But
yeah, but there was talk about it, and amongst the fans, media, all that. So I think he definitely, just knowing, because he knows the type of player he is and he knows what he can bring to the game. So him wanting to be more involved in the offense, I necessarily didn't take any issue with, but it turned out for the better, for us, I think for the better, right? Even though we didn't win, but we were able to turn our season around and, make the playoffs and end up with with a good record. Because for a second it looked like we weren't even going to be in that position,
right?
So I'm glad that we were able to turn that around.
Before we move on to the defense, how are you feeling about this receiving core going into this year? Because Keon Coleman gives great Instagram clips, Great personality. I liked him coming out of Florida State, but he's still a rookie. We're asking for a lot for a rookie if you're expecting him to be Stephon Diggs. Got a couple free agents you brought in, MVS, Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins. So what do you expect from this receiving core?
Yeah, I think it'll be a project, I think, at the beginning. I think it'll probably look just maybe a little weird for like the first 3 or 4 weeks, until we get something figured out, just to see what Keon looks like, what Shakir looks like now in this new role, what Kincaid is going to look like in this new role. I'm very excited to see Curtis Samuel in this offense. I think everybody's kind of just like pushing that aside and like looking at that as like a minor addition. I think he's going to be massive for this offense this season. I think it's going to open up a lot of things that I think that we weren't able to do before. It's going to look a lot like our offense did when we had McKenzie. I felt like there were some things that we could do in that offense with him that we kind of lost when he went to Indianapolis. So I'm looking forward to us bringing those things back with Curtis Samuel, who I think should be able to do a lot better in that role. And he can just provide a whole nother definition to this offense. So I'm excited. I think it'll look rough, just a little rough in the beginning as we, sort of figure this whole thing out. But as a whole season output, I think I'm okay with it.
And we got to move over to the defense. I need you to help me pronounce the last name of your defense coordinator. Bobby Babbage. Yeah. Okay. So he's going to be at the helm for the defense, but I think Sean McDermott's been pretty open about, okay, I'm the defense coordinator. I think he's been pretty open about that. And in general, I want to ask how different this defense is going to look, but I also want to emphasize, I don't think people remember how injured this Bills defense was last year.
Yeah.
Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Daquan Jones, Ed Oliver, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Greg Russo, Von Miller, like all of them either missed the whole season or a significant portion of time.
Yeah.
Now, some of them did not return to the team, but how do you think this defense is going to look going into this year?
It'll all depend on who the play caller is. Right, so nobody will say who it's going to be.
It's going to be McDermott,
right? So we can assume it's going to be McDermott. I think last year our defense, given all the injuries, was the best that I had seen it since we went to that AFC Championship game. And I know that like you look at the people on that team and you wonder how is that possible. You might even look at the stats and it might tell a different story. But I think I watched every game last season. I thought that our defense looked a lot better than it did the year prior and the year before that. I thought it looked great. It was injured, and I always thought that if we had those guys there and ready to go, that maybe we could have finally gotten over that hump and made it to a Super Bowl, right? Because to me, it always came down to our defense. It was never really a question of what the offense can do. You think about that Chiefs game and the 13-second thing. That was never a question of could Josh Allen score the ball? Could he get the ball down the field? That was never, to me, that's never been a question. People could talk about the interceptions. I get that. Until that cost us a playoff game, until his turnovers cost us a playoff game, I'm not worried about that. He could do that all season long, up and down, do whatever. Y'all know how he get from December to January. And if
it's so weird.
Once it get cold outside, it's a different dude, man.
Like 6'6", 250 in the 10-degree weather it's a different type of guy you're dealing with right now.
It's a different type of guy. So until that becomes an issue in playoff games, I'm not really worried about that. It's always been the defense. So I'm thinking this year the defense should look a lot better. It should look a lot better. I'm excited to see Cole Bishop. I think he's going to be pretty dynamic under McDermott. It should look good. It should look good.
My issue is just the youth. Like it's a lot of young guys, and also it's young guys and Von Miller that are my concerns. Like, what are we getting from a now 300-year-old Von Miller? I'm kidding. From a 35-year-old Von Miller who had all of 2 tackles last year. I mean, like, what are we getting from him?
Yeah, I think he came in probably a little too early last year.
Yeah.
I thought he kind of rushed himself back a little bit.
Trying to justify the contract and you know how that goes. All
Yeah.
right, so fast forward. It is February after the Super Bowl. The headline on the Buffalo Bills season is what?
Man, I'm hoping it's Josh Allen and the Bills were able to get over the hump and raise the Lombardi. But if not, like the most predictable thing would be losing to Kansas City again. So the headline would probably be, the boogeyman returns, the nightman cometh. Like how do we get this monkey off our back, man? Like, I mean, that would be the most It's either like we win it or we lose to them. I can't see anything else happening. Um, Respect to everybody else in the AFC. I ever only worry about Kansas City, and I guess Cincinnati. I guess I don't know. We're like we see them, and it's just like we forget how to play football. I don't even think that they're like. I don't ever think that team is like that great. Like this is the same team that almost lost to a backup quarterback in the first round of play. They were one play away from losing to a backup quarterback in the playoffs.
The same year they went to the Super Bowl, by the way.
Yeah. So you want to talk about a team that's just like on a string of dumb luck, and it just like they all magically decide to be the best football players in the world whenever they play us for some reason. It's so weird and so incredibly frustrating. But like Kansas City is really the only team that I look at, and I'm just like, okay, Baltimore. That's another team that I look at, and I wonder, like, they always do this thing where like they stop running stop running the ball in the playoffs. I've never understood. I never understood that. It's the thing that got you here.
Side note: before we move on to the next team, I rewatched that AFC Championship game because I'm getting ready for the previews and whatnot.
Yeah,
bro, I wanted to fight Tom Monken all over again.
It's like, this is what got you here. Like, I don't understand.
It makes no sense. All right.
I don't understand.
I agree with your headline. I think the headline ends up being, God damn it, the Chiefs lose in the divisional round to the Bills. The Bills lose in the divisional round to the Chiefs again. And Patrick Mahomes, their boogeyman, will go back to the drawing board and come back next year and see how this turns out.
Like that's it. That's all we can do, man.
All right. Next up, AFC East divisional preview. The Miami Dolphins. What is more likely, they make the Super Bowl or they miss the playoffs?
Miss the playoffs, definitely more likely. Now I think winning the Super Bowl. I'm not really. It's something about them, man. It's something about them that I just don't. I don't believe in them. I don't. I really, and that's not even me just like hating on my divisional opponent, because I think that they're a good football team. I really do. I just can't. I can't see them beating the Kansas City. I can't see them beating us. I can't see them beating Baltimore. I can't see them beating Houston if they had to play Houston. I just can't. It's something in my mind that's not allowing me to envision that. I think they're going to have some dogfights with the Jets.
I'll tell you exactly what that thing is. In the past 2 seasons, so basically since Mike McDaniels got there and Tua decided he wanted to be an NFL quarterback, They are 17-4 versus non-playoff teams. They scored 20 points a game. They are 3-12 versus playoff teams, and they scored 20 points a game. That is why you don't believe in these Miami Dolphins. But I gotta say, man, I'm leaning more towards Super Bowl on one condition. We're gonna skip to question 2 on this. We got to figure out this Tua contract situation. That's not something you want hanging over your season.
Yeah.
Your quarterback who led the league in passing yards last year, say what you want about Tua, the man puts up numbers, and you're not going to do better than him. You got to pay the man. Like, every time I have one of these quarterback extension convos and someone's like, I don't know. I'm like, look, the market's the market. You got to pay. You have to pay him if you're not going to get rid of him. And if you do get rid of him, what's step 2?
Yeah, there's no better option.
You're not finding better than Tua right now.
No.
You're not going to find better than Tua.
And you're not going to punt a season because you don't want to pay your quarterback.
You're not going to tank for Carson Beck because you don't want to pay Tua.
Yeah, let's be serious.
Exactly. All right, so The main question I have for the Dolphins, though, is can they survive all these losses on their defense? Xavier Howard, gone. Christian Wilkins, gone. Roquan Davis, gone. Jerome Baker, gone. Bradley Chubb and Van Ginkel are going to be out on torn ACL or torn Achilles apiece. I feel like that sounds right. Torn ACL and torn Achilles apiece. Now they drafted my guy Chop Robinson and Muhammad Kamara to come in, and they signed Shaq Barrett to fill in, but you got these first year additions and rookies coming in. I'm not sure how much you're really going to be able to fill in that gap. So how do you see that?
Yeah, I think losing Christian Wilkins is probably going to be the most impactful loss that they suffered. I was a big fan of his. I thought that he kind of had that sort of game record mentality that you look for in a defensive player. And I don't think that they brought a person in that can, replicate that. I know Shaquille Barrett is a Super Bowl champion. I fully understand that. Just don't think that he's somebody who can impact the game, at his age or just like Christian Wilkins could. I don't think that that's necessarily possible. Xavier Howard, I think, is going to be probably a close second too, just because they've struggled with that cornerback position for a while, right? You got Ramsey, cool, that's all great, but you had Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, and that experiment didn't work out. So now you just got Ramsey. I don't even know who and Kendall Fuller, right? Yeah, they brought in Kendall Fuller.
They just brought Kellen Fuller, but let's not forget they had Eli Apple on the team last year.
Yes.
Any team that has Eli Apple on their roster is a telltale sign that something has gone wrong in their DB.
Yeah. Even though he did play in a Super Bowl, he did.
And what was his most memorable play in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
What was the most memorable play? Was it getting mossed by a white man?
Getting like that was dunked on. Yeah, getting dunked on. Yeah, you're right.
For the game-winning touchdown.
Right.
That's where I'm looking. And I had my names confused just to clear it up. Van Ginkel left. He's on the Vikings. Great pickup by them. And Jalen Phillips is the one that's out with a torn ACL. Until maybe week 8, they'll see him by.
And you got Poyer, who I love him, man. But
I like
over 30, hurt
I like
all
the
the
combo
time.
of Poyer and Javon Holland. I think Javon Holland, him and Kyle Hamilton are going back and forth for who's the best safety in the league. Those guys are awesome. So I would like to see what Poyer and Holland look like together because I think that can be special.
Yeah, it'll be something to watch for sure. I think he'll probably take a lot of pressure off Poyer's shoulders, just because you got a young guy who can run around and do everything and go sideline to sideline. Poyer's coming off of an injury, so I'm sure he'll be more not stationary, but definitely not as explosive and not as dynamic as Holland. But I still think he'll make a big impact for them for sure.
Absolutely. And then the last question for the Dolphins: what's the next step in the evolution of this offense? And by that I mean Mike McDaniel comes into every season with some type of wrinkle, some type of monkey wrench, some type of something to make this offense look different from the year before. And now Jalen Waddle's on a new deal. I think we've seen the best of Tyreek Hill. I don't think he's going to be washed this year, but I don't think we're getting another repeat of last year. It's going to get any better. We've seen his peak. We're not getting a repeat of that for probably the rest of his career. The O-line is going to be worse, and you have a glaring issue of not getting the same production in cold weather and against playoff teams. So what is that next step going to be to remedy this issue if you're the offensive genius you claim to be?
They're going to use one of the 8 running backs that they have rostered. And that's going to be I know that sounds like a joke. I'm genuinely serious that, those running backs are going to be heavily all 5 or 6, however many they have. You can only roster 4, but they have a whole bunch of them. Those guys are going to be involved in every single part of this. Every down this season is going to, I think we're going to see a lot of 2 running back, somebody line A-chain in the slot. We're going to see something crazy.
There's going to be running backs everywhere.
Yeah, because there's no reason that they have so many and they keep bringing them in if McDaniels is not thinking, okay, I have a plan to use these guys. And he's listen, a lot of his things are very abstract, very like, out there, but they seem to work a
Right.
lot of the time. So I would be surprised if we see just some of the weirdest running back sets you've ever seen in football next season.
It is now February after the Super Bowl. The headline on the 2024-2025 Miami Dolphins season is what?
I think if they don't sign Tua, it's going to be something related around, what's next? What's the next step at the quarterback position? I think if they do and they don't win the Super Bowl, then I think the question is, it's too early to call McDaniels to the forefront.
Some people are, though, and I think that's so crazy.
Like
how do we go
this,
from he saved to a career to he has to get fired in 2 years?
Yeah, no.
In both years making the playoffs. What? Come on now.
Yeah, no, yeah, let's be serious. I think it'll be if they don't sign Tua, I think it'll be something revolving around what do they do quarterback position. If they do re-sign him, I think it'll be what's next for just what's next for the offense. What offensive weapon can they look to bring in? Because I don't think they're going to look at their defense too much. You're going to look at where you're going to look at Tyreek, you're going to look at Tua, you're going to look at A-Chain, you're going to look at Mostert, you're going to look at all those guys and wonder who can we add to this fire to make it even large, like how can this offense get even more dynamic? How can we feed our crazy head coach?
I'm gonna fuck you up with this one. If they don't win the Super Bowl and they have another first round flame out like they did last year, I think the headline is going to be, is this the death of the Shanahan disciple? Is this the death of the Shanahan style offense? Because think about it. Shanahan's the most successful one, and his highlights are losing to Andy Reid twice in the Super Bowl and the biggest choke job in offense coordinator history.
Yeah.
And now his star pupil, Mike McDaniel, can only innovate the offense but so much if he's not able to even win a playoff game again this year. So I think this is going to end up being the year of, okay, maybe we've gone too far with this whole Shanahan offense thing. Maybe we need some variety. Maybe offensive linemen being big are important. Maybe that is important. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the Dolphins need a tight end too, man. I like Jonnu Smith, but they need somebody dynamic at that position.
They need some beef, man. All that speed, man. Y'all need a change-up pitch. I need something.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So we're gonna do the part that's gonna make me sad. The New England Patriots. I asked this question knowing the answer. Is it more likely the Patriots make the playoffs or have the #1 overall pick next year?
Had a #1 overall pick. I just don't think this roster is fleshed out enough.
I'm so sad that I agree. So sad that I agree.
But you've made a lot, in my personal opinion, they've made good steps in the right direction.
See, and that's the crazy part, right? I think this roster is so much better than last year.
Oh, absolutely.
I also think it is very possible that we will end up with a worse record because, one, we have the second hardest schedule in the league.
Yeah, which was insane.
Which fuck you, Roger Goodell, for doing that to the Patriots. Like, I don't know why you would do that to us. And also, the greatest coach of all time is no longer the coach of the team. And I love you, Jerod Mayo, but we're replacing the most experienced coach ever with a rookie head coach.
Yeah.
The gap in experience could not be larger. And I'm concerned because I really do think that this team that went 4-13 last year can go 2-15 this year. And I could still leave the season saying, yeah, we were still a better team. I can still leave feeling that way. But I look at the offense, right? And I'm gonna go on a tangent here.
Floor is yours.
I look at our offense and I'm like, all right, you look at the receiving core, it's a lot of number 2s, it's a lot of 3s, it's the Jujus, it's the Kendrick Bournes, it's the DeMario Douglas. All right, not everyone has a #1 wide receiver. I understand that. Cool. And then you look at the offensive line. Our best players are right guard. We still don't have a left tackle that would start on 28 of the other teams, maybe. Like, that's the part that concerns me, especially when you're trying to We don't know if Drake May is going to start. If Drake May ends up starting week 1, that's a great sign for him. But if not, cool. But like, if you at some point you don't draft a player at number 3 for him not to play the entire season, right? So
Exactly.
we're gonna see Drake May at some point this year. If you plan at starting a rookie quarterback eventually, you would hope you do a better job to set him up than this. And I just don't see that. Flip side though, I think this defense is going to be fucking incredible.
Yo, no, defense is gonna be crazy, especially if Gonzalez can look 80% of what he looked like before he got hurt.
Oh my God. He shut down Tyreek Hill. His second game ever in the NFL. Yeah. Judon's coming back. We re-signed Duggar. Jabril Peppers. Like, I love the personnel on the defense, and I like that our old defense coordinator, Mayo, is now our head coach. And the D-line coach is now the defense coordinator. I like that we kept it in-house so they don't got to learn a bunch of new shit. But it's infuriating that I'm looking at all these improvements, and I think it still might amount to 2-15. It's still,
yeah.
This still might be a very painful season of football for me to watch, and just knowing that we're just barely losing these games.
Tough division, tough schedule, and I think the next team that we discuss, if they're any good, if 8 can stay healthy for the whole season, it's going to be a problem for everybody.
I'm happy you brought that up. So the headline of the Patriots season can be, this team has improved, but with the number 1 overall pick, the New England Patriots select. Yeah. I think that could be the headline. All right. Last team in the AFC East, the New York Jets. Brandon, is it more likely that they win the Super Bowl or they end up with the number 1 overall pick? They have the widest range of any team in the league.
Yeah. Man. I'm gonna have to say it just depends. Like, it just depends on if Rodgers
need an answer.
Play. I'll say Super Bowl. Super Bowl.
I'm going number 1 overall pick.
Okay.
And that leads into the first question I have on the rundown. What's more likely? Aaron Rodgers plays 8 games or he plays 18?
Yeah. And that's the goal. That's the question. The question.
Their entire season, and the fact that their entire season rests on the shoulders and Achilles of a 40-year-old conspiracy theorist.
Oh. Worst human ever.
With an offensive line that they barely made better. They signed Tyron Smith, who might be over the hill. They signed the worst Ravens offensive lineman. Like, I like Olu Fashanu, who they drafted from Penn State. But again, rookie. How much can you really expect from a rookie right now?
Yeah.
I look at this team and I'm just like, if you're telling me that Aaron Rodgers is the difference between this team, there were 7. Let it not go unsaid. There were 7-10 last year with, I shit you not, the worst passing offense in football.
Yeah.
32nd in pass efficiency, 32nd on third downs, 32nd in the red zone. I have a graphic that I'm going to put in the video of this. And Brandon, if you look at the notes, you'll see it as well. You can see the difference between the offensive advanced metrics and the defensive advanced metrics. And for the audio listeners, just imagine everything for offense is 28 and down, and everything in the defense is 3 and up.
Yeah.
Like, that pretty much defines what we saw from the Jets last year. It's, if the Jets had even competent quarterback play last year, they make the playoffs. Not even good, just not Zach Wilson.
Anybody else.
Literally
anyone else.
Competent. Jacoby Brissett gets 10 wins with that team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because that
Tyrod Taylor does it.
And they have Tyrod Taylor now. So I'm just like, so that can get them to 10 wins. But the question after that is, can this defense keep up this level of play? Because this will now be the 3rd season in a row where if the offense doesn't hold up their end of the bargain, they are out there fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
Again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, defenses aren't built to do that.
It becomes a war of attrition at that point. With, can they outlast? Can they, it's now tired legs, tired bodies in week, 11, facing some dynamic AFC team who's working on both sides of the ball. So now it's like, how many games can your defense win you? I think that it'll win the Jets a lot of games this
Mhm.
season. Especially if they could keep a quarterback on the field. But yeah, man, I mean, that's the big question is can, how many wins can you get from the defense? And it's just going to depend on if the quarterback play does drop off, when does that happen?
And outside of even Rodgers' availability, do we not remember the last version we saw of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay 2 years ago?
Yeah, it
That
wasn't great.
that wasn't back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers we were watching,
Yeah.
guys. They missed the playoffs for a reason. that wasn't an accident that they ended up missing the playoffs. It had a
Hmm.
lot. And when they kept saying it was because of the receivers, Jordan Love with those same receivers the next year, we saw what he did.
You saw it.
So what are we really talking about here? So it's rough. That's why I say it's way more likely they get the number one overall pick than it is Super Bowl, because it's hard for me to believe that A, we get a full season of Rodgers, B, we get a full season of good Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
or C, the defense can keep up this run that we've been seeing for this long. It's just hard for me to imagine. Any last thoughts on the Jets before we get to our final segment of this?
No, just pray for him.
Pray for the Jets, who
For the
somehow are
Jets.
going to find a way to fuck this up.
Yeah,
And
somehow.
real quick, stop calling for Robert Sala's job. I'm sick of this too. Stop calling for his job. His job is defense. He's a defensive head coach, and their defense is awesome every single year.
Every year.
I don't know what more y'all want from him.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
all right,
not his fault. He has no QB.
thank you. He doesn't draft the QBs. So, final segment, division order is what?
Give me Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots.
I would agree. And a team makes the wild card from this division. Who is it?
Miami. I think the AFC's gonna be like that again.
I got to go Miami as well. All right. Thank you, my brother, for joining me. I think
Always.
I got to have you on a couple times throughout the season to see what else is going on.
Oh, for sure.
Appreciate
For sure.
you greatly, my man.